Good morning. I hope you guys can hear me okay. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think you might be able to hear me now. Okay, that should be working. Okay, I am also live on YouTube. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Um, Today's session is going to be on what to do if your visa gets denied. If you've already gone to your visa appointment and you've been denied, the session today kind of will go over things to think about, what you might be able to do differently for your next interview, and just some tips and tricks that I have for you guys. I'm actually going to disconnect my headphones. Okay. I think this might be better then. All right. So again, like I was saying, today we're talking about if you've already been denied your visa, things to think about, what you might be able to do differently for your next interview. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, I'm more than happy to do my best to answer those questions for you. I am going to open the chat as well because it's a smaller group today and I love when it's a smaller group. So I'm going to turn that on for you guys. And then I'm also going to monitor my YouTube page just to make sure everything's good on that end. It is currently 9 a.m. in Minnesota. The weather's really nice today, so that's always nice. Yeah, summertime's always nice here. So let me share my screen and go over these questions that I have for you guys. And then I'm gonna go here. It's just gonna be me hosting the session today, so if at any point you have any questions and I am not able to answer, I will get back to you guys after. I will get your email and get back to you. But with that, let me go full screen. Alrighty. It's going to be a fairly quick session unless you guys have a lot of complex questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to either leave them in the Q&A box or you can also leave it in the chat. So, agenda. Today we're talking about some important terms and types of refusals. So if you've already been to a visa appointment and you've been denied, they would likely give you like a piece of paper, a sheet of paper, what the role of the visa officer is, strategies to use for your next interview, and some helpful resources that we have for you guys. So a few things to remember when I think this is something that I always like to tell students, even when we do one-on-one visa prep sessions with our students. This is something we always talk about with them, is understanding what an F1 visa is and also just knowing the difference between the visa that you're applying for. So we have immigrant visa. So this is a visa that's issued to a person that's wanting to immigrate to the US and because they want to be a permanent citizen or remain in the US. Non-immigrant visa is a temporary visa for someone to be in the US for a specific purpose and a specific amount of time. And that is what the F1 visa falls under. Your F1 visa is a non-immigrant visa type with a very specific purpose for a specific period of time, and then just until you complete your degree. And so whenever you go for your visa interview, it's very important for you to answer in a way that indicates that you will be returning to your home country after you finish your degree. This is something I always tell students when we do visa prep sessions one-on-one, or if we do it with our students. A lot of times your answers are not clear And so when you're answering in a way where you're not really saying that you want to come back home, that always is a big indicator. So just to like move forward really quickly on this slide here. So if you've already been denied a visa, there's two types of visa denials, right? The first one is a 214B of the Immigration Act. And this is what students will typically get when they're denied. And essentially what this is saying is that you were not able to convince your visa officer that you want to return to your home country after you complete your degree. And so sometimes it could be something as little as you indicating that you want to stay in the US when you answer. And we'll go over some answers as well, questions and answers, and think about it together as a group. The other types of refusal is a 221G, which is an administrative processing. So this basically, honestly, is just saying that you need to provide additional documents or something to complete your application. But today we're focusing more on the 214B, which is likely why you guys are here today. So before we even get into the questions, I would like for you guys to try and put yourself in the mind of a visa officer. When you go to the visa officer, they are already assuming that you want to stay in the US. And so your job at that point is to prove that you're not going to do that. You are returning to your home country. So they have to assume that you are going to violate your F1 visa and you're going to stay in the US. I'm sure you guys have heard of the term innocent until proven guilty. With your F1 visa, I like to think of it as you're guilty until you prove you're innocent, if that makes sense. And if at any point you guys have questions, again, the chat's open, the Q&A box is open, so leave some questions. But I really need you guys to put yourself in the shoes of a visa officer and think about what they're thinking about when you're there. 1 second. I got free coffee today, guys. It's a good day. Happy Friday. Yeah, our dean is very generous. He brought us coffee for this Friday morning. So again, back to what I was saying. They are assuming that you're going to stay in the US. And so your job then is to answer in a way where you're saying that you want to come back home. A lot of times when I do visa prep with students, that's one thing that I notice is you guys, sometimes students are not confident in their answers. And when you're not confident in your answers or you don't know what you're talking about, it just kind of is an indicator that you don't know what you're doing. You're probably doing what your agency told you to do. And you don't even know why you want to go to this college. So there's a few things to think about here. So the red flags that they're looking for is you don't have the finances to pay for the cost of your program. How are you going to fund your program? And when you don't have the funding for your program, you're not able to pay for your degree. And so if you don't have the sufficient funds, they're likely not going to give you your visa. If you indicate at any point in your answer that you want to stay in the US, you don't know why you're studying in the US rather than staying at your home country or going to another country, you don't show any clear ties to your home country, you don't have a clear plan for your future career, you've submitted fraudulent documents, you lied on your DS-160, or during the visa interview you said something but your DS-160 says something else. There's a discrepancy there, which means you're likely lying, and so they're not going to give you your visa. So really, really think about these questions, right? Like visa interviews, again, if you've attended my just general visa prep sessions, visa interviews are typically only 2 to 3 minutes long. So you have 3 minutes to prove to a visa officer that A, you want to study at Minnesota State University Mankato. B, you want to study in the program that's on your I-20. C, you've done enough research about Minnesota, about the university, about things on campus, about your program, and you know what you're talking about. D, you have some sort of ties or a future career plan that ties with your degree that you're going to do, whether back in your home country or you want to go to another country and work there. So think about these questions. What I always tell students if you've been denied is, and I think it's in my next slide, reflect on your interview. If your interview was very recent, or even if it was like a while ago and you're like waiting for your visa like interview slots to open, reflect on your interview. What I always tell students is to get like a notebook or a piece of paper and write down everything they asked and what did you say? How did you answer the questions? Sometimes they will tell you, if you've been denied, they will tell you why you were refused, which is always nice to know, because then you can then think about how to change that for your next interview. But if for some reason you actually don't know why they denied you, write down what they asked, write down what you said, and then look at it. What I notice with some students is that their answers are too long. Sometimes students' answers are too long. Sometimes when I do visa prep with our students, I'll ask them like, who's your sponsor? And then students will go into a whole 5-minute long answer about who their sponsor is, what they do, how much they make. That was not my question, right? My question was, who's your sponsor? You're going to say, if it's your father, you're going to say, oh, it's my father. If it's your mother, you're going to say, oh, it's my mom. My question was, who's your sponsor? I don't need to hear, my dad's my sponsor, he has an industry like business and he makes. That was not my question. So are you answering to the point? Are you actually answering the question that they're asking? Are you adding unnecessary things to your answers? Because if you are, we need to like cut that out. So write down the questions, write down the answers, be as detailed as possible. Think about the answers you said, write down exactly what you said, and then think about why you were refused. Because that's something that I notice with a lot of students. All right. Okay, so some things to reflect on, and it looks like I didn't fully finish this slide, but it has all of the important lessons. Do you intend to comply with the terms of your visa? A visa officer wants to know that you can afford the cost of attendance throughout the program. If you are unable to afford the program, what can you do to make up for that difference? I do get a lot of students reach out and say like, hey, could you guys provide additional funding for me for the interview? And unfortunately, that is not something we can do. We already, if you're an undergraduate student, we already provide the International Maverick Scholarship. If you are a graduate student and you have a graduate assistantship, you already have that. So if there's a difference in the cost of attendance and your funding, and you've already been denied, you got to make up for that funding during your next interview. Because anytime you go for a second interview after you've been denied the first time, you need to show some sort of significant change in your application for them to reconsider your denial, if that makes sense. So, questions about your program or major. Are you familiar with the subject matter? Do you know the strengths of the program? Do you know the weaknesses of the program? Your degree needs to make sense in context of your goals. So in the future, if you are wanting to, for example, if you are wanting to start a business in your home country, but your So you want to start like a manufacturing business, right? For example, but your degree program that you're coming for is biology. It doesn't make sense. So your degree needs to make sense in the context of your goals. However, this is not to say that just because you have a degree in biology, you cannot have a business, right? You need to know how to like answer in a way that combines the two, and that tells the visa officer that yes, you do have a plan, you do have a goal. Whenever they ask you why this school, again, the visa interview is not an admissions interview. You've already been admitted to our university. What they want to hear when they ask you this question is not your essay. It's not a long answer. It's exactly what attracted you to our university. I do see a few newer names today. So for those that don't know, my name is PJ Gurung. I don't think I introduced myself today because I'm just everywhere. But I am a former international student from Nepal. So I came to the US in 2016, and I came here as a psychology major. Actually, no, that's not true. I came here as a sociology major, and then I switched to psychology at some point because that's kind of what I wanted to do after. But at the visa interview, they asked me about my program. They said, why sociology? And I knew at that point that I wanted to do something very specific in the teaching field. And sociology is not a program that's widely known in Nepal. Not a lot of people do go that route. And so that's kind of what I said. And MSU has a really great research program. MSU has a really good student to faculty ratio, things like that, that attracted me to the university. And so think about what attracted you to this university. If you have like friends that go here, that's a totally reasonable answer too, because they recommended this university, you looked at it, they have the program you wanted, and you're here. So for your next interview, you must be able to present evidence of significant changes and circumstances since your last visa application for them to reconsider the denial that you've already received. So recognize your highlights and hurdles to study in the US. So if you are a strong academic student but have limited finances, how will you overcome your financial limitations? Could that be taking an additional loan that covers that deficit? Because that would show that yes, you do have the finances now and you're able to do it. The other thing is you have the finances, but you are admitted to an intensive English program. How will you communicate your intentions to the visa officer that you are going to continue on with your undergraduate degree once you pass through with the intensive English program? So you need to be able to communicate your story and give concrete examples. We have a few examples on the screen. However, these are example questions. These may not work for you. And so when you are thinking about your answer, I need you to think about your answer in the context of your story and your life. So if you wanted to go in biomedical sciences, I'm studying a bachelor's in biomedical sciences so I can pursue my master's and eventually work for a medical research lab in my home country to develop advanced medical technology. Or you could say I'm studying at Minnesota State Mankato because it has a strong biomedical program with undergraduate research opportunity. Essentially, you need to know your program, you need to know MSU a little bit, you need to have done some sort of research, and there needs to be something that attracted you personally to our university. So think about those and then go from there. Ultimately, you need to show ties to your home country. Sometimes when I bring this up, like some students get really nervous because they're like, well, I don't really have like a family business that I'm coming back to. It doesn't always have to be that. Yes, friends and family is a very reasonable answer to give because you want to come back home, right, after you complete your program. However, sometimes it could also be career opportunities. You already have a job offer in your home country, or you are going to start a business with some friends. You have this company that you really want to work for, etc. Or if you're continuing education in your home country or in a different country, that's also a completely reasonable answer. How do you demonstrate this though? visa officers will not always directly ask you about ties. Sometimes they might not even ask you that question, and they'll let you kind of answer that on your own. So everything you answer should point to your intent to return home. Give concrete examples. Please don't be vague. Identify your ties before the interview. Sometimes someone might say like, I'm just gonna wing it, like I don't care. But it's very important for you to identify your ties before the interview, which is why writing your answers down is going to be really helpful, because you can look at your answers and you can reflect and see, like, did I really at any point indicate that I know what I'm talking about and that I want to come back home? These are some really good resources for you guys if you don't know, or if you haven't gone through these resources yet. Argo Visa has some really nice playlists that you can watch. NAFSA's 10 Visa Points to Remember is also a great read. It's like a blog post, but I always recommend students to go through it. You can also alternatively schedule a visa prep session with one of our current international students. However, remember that just because you're attending our free visa prep session doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get your visa. However, it's always nice to be able to, practice your answers with someone and get feedback from a student that has gone through that process. The visa prep sessions were closed for a little bit, but we are going to be reopening the visa prep session, so I highly recommend that you go in and schedule some time to practice your answers with our students. Here's some questions to maybe practice on your own. What I always recommend students is, if you don't have someone that you can practice with, face to face and get feedback, answer your questions in your voice recorder app on your phone and listen back to it. Are you using a lot of fillers? Do you sound confident? Are your answers short, long, maybe too short, maybe too long? And then when you listen back to your answers, you'll be able to see and pinpoint where you might want to work your answers a little bit more. So these are some questions I recommend you guys to practice. Again, this does not guarantee that these are the questions you're going to get asked at the interview, right? But these are just some good practice questions. And so if they ask you specific questions, you might be able to take some answers from these. So why do you want to study in the US and at this university? What are your academic goals? Do you apply to other schools? Be honest. If you did apply to other schools, say yes. Don't need to lie about it. Who will be paying for your studies? What are your plans after you finish school? And then ties to your home country. Sometimes, again, visa interviews sometimes are just 2 to 3 minutes long. So they might ask you 2 questions and that might be it. They might ask you 1 question and that might be it. Sometimes it's just really hard to say. And so these are some good questions to practice on a little bit and then go from there. Again, these are some things that you need to take if you've been in our visa prep sessions in the past. Just things to take to your visa interview: your I-20 printed and signed, passport, of course, SEVIS I-901, payment receipt, visa application fee payment receipt, photo for your visa. Also, like, check your embassy requirements, because some embassies will actually tell you to bring a photo, a separate, passport size photo with you to the interview, even if you've uploaded it to the DS-160. Your admission letter, bank statements, academic transcripts, proof of English proficiency if you took that, and then documentation of ties to your home country if you have any. Again, this might not be the case, right? You might not have anything to show, and in that case, you're going to have to really use your words to answer that. Day of your visa interview, you will go through a security checkpoint. I'm sure you guys are already well aware of that. These are some resources, again, that I already shared with you guys. Rescheduling is going to be the same as your the first time that you scheduled your visa interview. And relax. Ultimately, visa interviews are typically 2 to 3 minutes long. Remember to be calm and remember to be concise. By concise, if you don't know what that means, is you need to make sure your answers aren't too long and be to the point. orientation dates are here for you again. Monday, August 17th through Friday, August 21st. You do have to be in Mankato on or before August 16th, so you're ready for check-in on August 17th. I highly encourage you to also keep in mind about the July 17th date. That's the first day you can enter the US. And ultimately, I wish you the best. I know it's a very nerve-wracking time, just the visa interview in itself, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of worries on your mind, a lot of things on your mind. So if you have questions, feel free to leave it in the chat. For now, I do see one question, so let me quickly get to that. Actually, I have a quiz for you guys. If you could answer that question for me. All right, well, you guys are all answering correctly. The answer is yes, non-immigrant visa. Your F1 visa is a non-immigrant visa. Think about that. And so with that, Aki, I do see your question. I know that you emailed me as well. Let's see. You've been refused twice. I think my question for you in this instance would be, when you went for your second interview, what significant change did you show? And why do you think you were denied? It's really hard to gauge because, again, you did mention having dependents and that your partner is at the university right now. I will respond to your email. I will respond to your email soon, and then we can definitely chat about it. Masese, I don't think I'm saying your name right. My visa was denied. What do I do? Again, Masese, I feel like you joined a little bit late, so you can rewatch the session today and kind of go and touch on all the points that I made in the video. If you were denied, obviously you need to go for if you're planning to go for your second interview, and if there's dates available. I know that visa appointments are really hard to get right now. And so think about why you were denied. Anytime you're denied and you go back for another interview, you need to show some sort of significant change. So if you feel like you were denied the first time because you didn't have enough funding, how are you going to fix that before you go for your interview? Because ultimately, if nothing has changed in your interview when you've already been denied and you're going a second or a third time, there's no reason most likely for them to change their decision because nothing has changed. And so just think about that as well as you are trying to figure out your next appointment, if that makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, because if not, I will be ending the live a little early today and I'll give you guys some time back. I did figure that this would be a quicker session unless you guys had questions. But again, if you are joining late, the recorded session is going to be on our YouTube page, which is just Kearney Center. Feel free to rewatch it, and then you guys can always reach out to me if you have additional questions. Aki, I will reach out to you. I'll respond to your email. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to email me, or you can WhatsApp me also. However, if you message me on WhatsApp, sometimes it takes me a little while to get back to you. So just keep that in mind. With that, I really wish you guys the best for your next interview. Remember, be confident. Make sure your answers are not 5 minutes long. Try and keep your answers short, but also don't just skip out any important details if possible. Be clear. Know why you're wanting to attend Minnesota State Mankato. Like, there has to be a reason why you want to come here, right? And not another university. Why is that? Think about why you're studying the program you're studying, and what do you want to do with the degree. Think about ties to your home country. I think that's the one that most students get really stuck on, because they're like, well, I don't know. But really think about that as well. And then, yeah, I wish you guys the best. Feel free to email me or send me a message on WhatsApp if you have additional questions. And for those that are just joining us now, you can watch our recorded session on our YouTube page. After I end this live, it'll be on there, so you guys can go and watch it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Our next session is going to be, I think, next week, so I will see you guys then. I think our next session is on, let me see, July 7th, and it's on placement testing. So if you're still kind of wondering how placement testing works in the US, why you have to take it and all of that, that's a good session to join. We do have a lot of other sessions, and we have a final visa prep session that's going to happen on July 22nd. If you're still waiting. Otherwise, we do have recorded visa prep sessions on our YouTube page that you can go and rewatch that we did a few weeks ago. Good luck. I wish you guys the best, and keep me in the loop. I always appreciate when you guys kind of let me know what's going on, and I will do my best to support you however I can. Thank you for joining. Have a good night, have a good day, have a good evening.